G'day guys, and today I want to go on a bit of a tract about consequentialism. Now, consequentialism is a class of ethics that holds that the consequences of one's conduct or actions are the ultimate basis for any judgment about whether that action was right or wrong. So we can think of such consequentialist theories such as the end justifies the means and utilitarianism and that sort of thing. Now, someone who does not believe in consequentialism, someone who believes that the actions can be considered right or wrong in of themselves, and I'll explain why later, obviously I want to prove consequentialism wrong and flawed, and obviously prove myself right. So I was here at my desk trying to disprove consequentialism rather than just dismiss it out of hand, because that is obviously quite common nowadays. Instead of engaging with people and bringing reason and evidence to the table, people just, in a partisan manner, along party lines and that sort of thing, just dismiss other opinions out of hand. And this is a big problem, obviously, because there's only two ways to resolve an ideological difference: through words or through violence. And if we're not using words, we'll inevitably use violence. But that's a big topic for another day. So what I was essentially doing is I've pulled up the slogan or the tagline of utilitarianism, which is the greatest good for the greatest number of people, and I've just begun asking some simple questions. This is, of course, the easiest way to go about disproving something wrong. You don't need to trawl through hundreds of years of research why utilitarianism is wrong. You just need to ask a few basic questions. So my big problem with utilitarianism, or this slogan specifically, is the use of the word good. Now, what exactly is the good? And that's a pretty big philosophical question, and I don't think it's something to just be dismissed out of hand. We have to ask ourselves, is what is good objective or subjective? Because it depends on your definition of the word, and you've got to be using the same definition of the word when you're engaging in a debate with someone, because otherwise you may as well be speaking different languages. So I've tried to go looking for a few definitions of what the good may mean in philosophy, and so far, based on my curiosity research, you may have seen something different. The definitions of good I've had are inherently subjective. So what they've been is such things as what is good is what should be desirable, or what is good is what should be valued. Now, the problem with desire and value is that they're subjective things. Something you value is not necessarily valued at all times in all places, and same goes with desire, because they're linked, obviously. For this, we can think of ice cream, which is an example I've used before. Ice cream is not desirable often, or as much the same, when it's really cold, but it is quite desirable when it's really hot. Now, obviously, when you're out in the desert, you're pretty hot. You would love an ice cream. You would value ice cream more than you would if it was really cold and you were in a desert at night, per se. If it's really cold, you don't value ice cream as much. If it's really hot, you do. So we can see how value isn't a concrete thing. We can't ask the question, is ice cream valuable, and get a yes or no answer, because it depends, again, based on circumstance. Now, the problem with having your ethical theory be based on something circumstantial, such as desire or value, is that it's not applicable at all times in all places, and then it becomes a sort of endless nightmare trying to work out when something is good and when something is good based on any impossible amount of variations of the same situation. So we can see how a consequentialist system of ethics is a logistical nightmare, trying to work out what's good and what's not good when situations are constantly changing. But that's peanuts compared to what's coming next, and what's coming next is the idea that people value and desire different things, and how do you fit this into your system, which is inherently subjective. Say, for example, we have a situation of theft. Two people effectively desire the opposite things, and how do we resolve this issue? How do we measure their desires and try to work out what is the greatest good for this greatest number of people? I don't know if there's a way to measure people's brain chemistry or something to work out how strong their desires are. Maybe the levels, if you have everyone wearing like some sort of headset with needles going into their brain hooked up to an electrograph, and you can see, this person's got massive spikes and this person's got smaller spikes, therefore we can determine his desire for your property is more, therefore he should get it. But again, that's just a logistical nightmare. And, we can throw in the additional complication of what if there's more than one person? What if two people are robbing one person? Do we consider that their 2 units of happiness or desire or good or perception of good outweigh that one person's perception, and therefore, there's a net gain of 1 unit of happiness, therefore the transaction should take place. It's confusing to say the least, and the problem is ultimately with consequentialist systems is that you can end up validating or saying certain actions are moral which are intrinsically immoral. And this is where I get back into my outlook of the world. So my ethical outlook of the world is formed from the ideas of Immanuel Kant and Stefan Molyneux's somewhat recent book, Universally Preferable Behavior. And what these two people said is that essentially certain actions, if they are considered moral, invite a logical contradiction. So for an example of this, we can return to theft. Now, in the case of theft, if we consider theft to be moral, then obviously the two people in this interaction both want to be moral. So the person wants to steal, and the other person who's been stolen from wants to be stolen from. Now, this invites a logical contradiction, because if you want to be stolen from, then it's not theft, because the key difference between theft and giving something away is consent, and that's the same with rape, it's the same with murder, it's the same with assault. If you want to be punched in the head, you're not being assaulted. It's some kind of silly game or something. And if you want to be raped, then it's not rape, because it's all about consent. If you consent to an action, you can't say you're being forced upon. So in our example of theft, we effectively end up with someone who wants to not want his property to be stolen. Now, as we can easily all find out, you cannot undertake two contradictory actions at the same time. You cannot both want something and not want something at the same time. And if you want an example of this, try picking up an object, say a ball, and throwing it up and down at the same time. It simply cannot be done. And this is exactly the same case with theft. So as I pointed out before, there's a couple of other actions that, if considered moral, invite logical contradictions. We have murder, we have assault, we have rape, we have theft. And what do all these things have in common? Well, they involve consent and force, essentially. So essentially, if we take a broader look at things, we can say that it is always immoral to initiate the use of force. And if that statement sounds familiar, it's because I didn't make it up. It's the non-aggression principle from libertarian philosophy. So that's essentially where I'm at ethically at the moment. I'm a big fan of the non-aggression principle. Now, there's a myriad number of reasons why the non-aggression principle isn't everyone's go-to ethical standard, and that's a topic for another video where we've got to talk about government education, the role of culture and that sort of thing. But something that I think bears pointing out is the fact that the NAP is a sort of restrictive system. It tells you what you can't do, essentially. But consequentialist systems try to tell you what you can do. They're very proactive in that regard. Utilitarianism, for example, is the greatest good for the greatest number of people, and you can try and work out what you should do to generate the greatest good for the greatest number of people, whereas the NAP just tells you you can't do these things. And I guess some people don't like that, because some people have a more proactive view of morality. For example, a great example is the millionaire who generates a lot of money for himself, but he doesn't hand it out to the poor. Now, the non-aggression principle says that's totally fine. It doesn't invite a logical contradiction. Two people can have their own money to themselves, and there is no logic to contradict. But some people say that's immoral, and you should redistribute that wealth, and that's a good thing to do. That's a more proactive stance on morality. Now, you can't exactly prove that, because again, getting right back to the start of the video, what exactly is good? And if good is something that is valuable or desired, well, then it's subjective. Subjective systems can't actually be proven concretely. It's not like a science and that sort of thing. And when you look at that, I've just tied back into the thesis statement of this video, something that I never ever do. I hope you found something of value within this. If you have something to add to the video, or if you have any critique, I'd love to hear it down in the comment section below. Please let me know if this helped you out or helped you out with any of your friends. I always love to hear comments like that. Thanks all for sticking around, and have a good one.